All right, we're back for live coverage of the Lost Boys Lorcana Invitational, brought to you by TCGplayer.com. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat Career. Say hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bo Matt.
We have 2 rounds down in our first day of pod play, and now we're going to be looking for some players to punch their ticket into the top 8 where they can win some serious cash money tomorrow in our top 8 elimination bracket. We're going to be up first watching Matthew Campo battle against Krista O. And Campo was one of our last chance qualifiers from last night. Let's take a look at his deck list, get that on the screen. He's playing a Ruby Amethyst control deck. Now, this is a 59 card list on the screen. We had a mishap with our graphic. There should be a third copy of LeFou Instigator, but other than that, it looks like pretty standard with a lot of those.
Evasive.
Yes, the evasive characters to help win the mirror match.
Yeah, I would actually push back on describing this as, pretty standard because we're missing some of the key cards Ruby Amethyst Control usually plays in Magic Mirror and the Queen. So rather than opting for this, repeated card advantage, Matt Campo and the rest of his team from the LCQ last night are relying on these huge evasive threats. They're playing far more copies than any other Ruby Amethyst players.
Yeah, 4 copies also of Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor has to be mentioned. This powerful 8-drop has evasive. Quest for 4 is one of the strongest cards in the game, but also very expensive. We don't see it too often in this deck because it does suffer in the mirror match of being an 8-cost card against those big sweeper effects, but this evasive heavy version can quest pretty hard later as the turns get later in the game. Let's take a look at Krista O. This is going to be his opponent for this round. Krista O has brought Ruby Sapphire ramp and is looking essentially to use Mickey Mouse, Grammatala, and One Jump Ahead to ramp into those big baddies that Ruby Amethyst likes to play. Aladdin, Heroic Outlaw, Maleficent, Monstrous Dragon, and Be Prepared. A couple of cool little additions with Let It Go. We still have the Maui package, and the top end includes Belle Strange with special questing for 5.
Oh yeah.
And some Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailors. All right, well, the players have been waiting on us, so let's go ahead and head on down to the feature match area and start round number 3 as we find our first entry into the top 8 elimination rounds. Campo, with that Ruby Amethyst deck, took down the field last night, was one of our 2 qualifiers, and now Krista O is going to be using her Ruby and Amethyst deck, Ruby and Sapphire deck to see if she can take him down.
Yeah, you mentioned those big threats that Krista's ramping into, and players don't usually opt for Ruby Sapphire as opposed to Ruby Amethyst. But I actually think this in particular is a great matchup for Krista. Campo's list being lower on the card draw and relying on those evasive threats, one of the reasons to play Ruby Sapphire is for the increased density of removal spells. Krista has Maleficent, Hades, Let It Go, and Dragonfire to answer any huge Brave Little Tailors or Pongos or Goofies that Matthew's going to try to end the game with. So I think Krista could be in a great matchup here against Ruby Amethyst, this build in particular.
All right, we're going to ramp a little bit. One jump ahead. You know that song, right? From Aladdin?
One jump ahead of the breadline.
Here's Friends on the Other Side from Matthew Campo. Going to draw 2. Going to go back Kristo's way and see if she can capitalize on her extra ink development. Something like Belle Strange with special and another ink drop here would be nice for pushing towards those 7 drops. We'll see if that's the sequence she's got.
Do you see a Mickey Mouse Detective, which still turn 3. Great turn to play the mouse. And Krista's going to be able to play any card on her deck in just 1 or 2 turns.
Okay, here's Mickey Mouse Detective coming down, getting more ink. We're up to 5. And Campo going to play another Friends on the Other Side. Draw 2. Here we go. Divination, divination, divination.
And talking to the players, I've heard this is one of the hallmarks of the way Matthew Campo plays this deck. Without Magic Mirror or anything, really emphasizes on the early turns, playing out these friends on the other side and getting that hand size up to then be able to answer spells. Wow, that's a lot of ramp.
Yep. All right, so we got 7 ink. Haven't even played an ink yet. We're going to sing.
Wow.
One jump ahead. And Krista O looking to get a Brave Little Tailor or maybe a Maleficent Monstrous Dragon down on turn 5.
Yeah. Gotta eat to live, gotta steal to eat. That's what Aladdin says. And a measly 5 ink for Matthew Campo.
All right, here's a Rafiki. That's going to bang the drum on the Mickey Mouse Detective, sends it packing. And we're going to go back Krista's way unless Campo has a 2-drop he wants to play.
Yeah, or the Ruby Sapphire is lighter on card draw, no copies of Friends on the Other Side, or anything like that. So Krista is going to be relying on hitting threats with multiple lore and just slamming those turn after turn, and kind of hoping to end the game sooner than a Ruby Amethyst version would.
All right. Well, we go and play a broom and shuffle back in Friends on the Other Side. And after that, it's going to go back Chris's way. And after all this ramping, we'll see what the payoff is. We got a lot of ink. Now we just need something to do with it.
Yeah, and without card draw, you tend to not be so choosy, so you start to see things out of Ruby Sapphire like just slamming Maleficent Monstrous Dragon to trade with cheaper characters a lot of the time.
All right. Krista reaches for something. Let's see what it is. That's a Hades Infernal Schemer. That's going to eat the Rafiki, put it into the Inkwell, and now we're going to quest for 1. Now, normally the Hades Infernal Schemer, quite good against larger characters. In this spot, Krista just wants to play something to get some pressure on the board, but in doing so gives the Ruby Amethyst deck an extra ink, which is exactly what they want.
Right, and the way Ruby Amethyst tends to play is they want to continue inking even past 9, 10, 11 ink to be able to take multiple game actions. You don't have that luxury as much with Ruby Sapphire, so you saw Krista here ramp up to 8, and then seems like she has stopped inking, at least for the time being, because she now has enough ink to play anything out of her deck, including Maleficent with just 1 more ink drop. So she's trying to conserve cards in hand at this point and use them as spells instead of as ink, essentially.
All right, Krista draws for turn. Going back her way after that. Ursula gonna play Let It Go as ink. You know what that means? Here comes the dragon.
Count 'em up.
Boom.
You're fired. Alright, that's 2 turns and two 2-for-1s for Krista. Getting some characters out of the way while developing threats. And only sitting on a couple more cards, but if they're good, Krista might be in a good spot here.
Yeah, Ruby Sapphire not great about drawing extra cards though, so potentially gets to the point where you have all this ink, but not a lot of ways to use it, and maybe you draw a couple more ramp spells off the top of the deck or other kind of awkward things that are more defensive in nature, like Maui Hero to All.
That's why this is a great deck for Robin Hood Unrivaled Archer.
There's a Be Prepared, and the whole board goes kaput. Go back Chris's way and see if she can present a scary threat here for Matthew Campo to deal with.
That's pretty scary.
The Latin Heroic Outlaw, great at challenging characters in a quest for 2, and it's decent size. See if Campo has some way to fire back.
A little bit less, efficient in Ruby Sapphire. A lot of the time in Ruby Amethyst, you see Aladdin pair up with Elsa to be able to exert characters that the opponent didn't think would be vulnerable. But Ruby Sapphire, you don't really have that luxury. Aladdin is just one of the better top-end threats available.
All right, here's a Sorceress and a Friends on the other side. We're going to draw some cards. A handful of Campo versus Krista with very few. If I'm Campo, I think I'm in a pretty great position because you are a little behind on ink, but your deck will get there eventually through card draw, naturally playing those cards as ink. And I think with Krista being so low on resources, not playing a lot of card draw herself, just because of the color combinations, right?
Yeah.
It could be difficult for her to capitalize on this huge ink advantage in this matchup. Normally, one of her big plays is ramp into Be Prepared, but ramp into Be Prepared is only great against the Steel and Amber decks. It's not so good in this matchup necessarily.
And here's the card I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, Robin Hood Unrivaled Archer. One of the best roles for Robin Hood is in these Sapphire decks, catching you back up on cards after you spend a lot to get a lot of ink into play. And I've found Robin Hood to be just kind of great in these spots as kind of a curve filler, but does exactly what you want. And here it's going to threaten 2 more lore next turn while not costing a card. And the cleanest answer to Heroic Outlaw, probably going to be this Maui hero to all. One
You're
for one.
welcome. Bang.
Bang.
Just a trade though. Normally Maui is great because it challenges stuff and sticks around.
Right.
The Archer was a great draw, replacing itself and adding some pressure to the board. So what you want to be drawing. Krista would love to draw 3 more Archers in a row.
Wouldn't we all?
All right, here is especially the artist. Haha, got him. Here's an Aladdin Street Rat. Gonna take 1 lore away from Krista O, pushing her further away from victory. We're gonna draw for turn. Arranging the inkwell. Alright, we gotta pick up the card draw for turn and put it in hand. The closer it is to the inkwell, the sweatier I get. Here's an Aladdin Heroic Outlaw. We're gonna play that as more pressure. And now if Campo wants to sing Friends on the Other Side or challenge or quest or whatever, could be rather dangerous in the face of this outlaw. We'll see if he has the answer.
Yeah, not usually something Ruby Amethyst is super concerned with, though, right?
Right.
They usually wait to gain kind of an overwhelming board advantage and then turn the corner very quickly. So Matthew's not going to be too sad that questing is not a viable option here. But that's enough pressure out of Krista that I wouldn't be surprised to see it be prepared, though Matthew might be interested in conserving value, especially since, with this build there's no magic mirrors.
Yeah, not having Magic Mirror, obviously it's a nod to the aggressive decks because you just don't have that much time to activate the mirror. And if you plan on playing against Amber and Steel in mass, then I think it's fine. I would not necessarily replace it with the Cauldron, but both Campo and his teammate from yesterday, whose name escapes me, were both playing no mirror and 2 copies of the Ursula's Cauldron. So. All right, so Monstrous Dragon eats the Aladdin, and then we double trade into the 4/4 Archer, and now we're going to go back Krista's way. We want a Maleficent Monstrous Dragon of our own to challenge the opponent's one. Let's see if she's got it. She has a Dragon Fire. That's step 1 for answering it. We're at 7 lore. We're pushing towards the end game. It might take a little while, and we know that Ruby Amethyst is notorious for preventing getting to 20 lore.
Exactly. Time and time again we see, 17, 18, even 19 lore not quite threatening enough. The Ruby Amethyst deck has too many tools to come back from that position. But we do have a great answer. Really, every turn you'd want to be playing a Monstrous Dragon if at all possible, right?
Right. I mean, as long as your opponent has a character on the table.
Yeah.
Actually, when I first started watching some Lorcana back when we were first getting into it, one of the first matches I watched was a Ruby Amethyst mirror match where both players, I guess, had 14 plus cards in hand after activating Magic Mirror a bunch.
Wow.
And neither player would deploy a threat because they knew the opponent was just going to use Maleficent Monstrous Dragon to eat it. And so they were just waiting until the very, very end, and they were going to use brooms.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. That sounds bad.
Yeah, so then at that point in the metagame is where we started seeing players look towards cards like Ursula Power Hungry that actually trades pretty well into a Maleficent as a way to put pressure on their opponent when you're in that kind of a position.
All right, so Elsa comes down for Campo to freeze the opponent's characters, but Krista O has the answer with the Dragonfire, so no harm, no foul, and plays Jasmine, but be prepared. Clears the board once again for Matthew Campo. The powerful 7 mana Ruby card, just devastating in a lot of these creature-based matchups. But even here in the ramp matchup, you got to win the game through questing, right? So you're just going to be vulnerable to that card.
It did at least take Matthew's whole turn, but the follow-up for Krista is pretty anemic in just a Grammatala.
Grandma, what are you doing here? All right, Pongo. We're going to start to potentially push towards the end game with Matthew Campo. Going to start questing probably. Maybe just ignore the Grammatala, but challenging it also not very difficult. An extra ink Not a big deal either since Krista
Yeah.
already has 10 plus. Just a pass after the Pongo. Hand must be really defensive. I see at least a Be Prepared over there, a Dragonfire, but nothing worth targeting. Pongo down. Dragonfire going to chew him up.
Yeah, not in the top tier of draws for Krista at this point. We're looking for, of course, Monstrous Dragons, Hades, Infernal Schemers, and Robin Hoods. There's Ursula. So drawing a card and getting another great threat into play. Uh, Campo, we don't see the repeatable card draw in Magic Mirror, but playing out at least 3 friends on the other side so far this game has left Matthew with a pretty stocked hand.
All right, a decent top deck here. Develop your brain. Gonna look at the top 2 and pick the best one to play. See what she wants to take. The card in hand has to be a defensive card because it's been kind of sitting over there for a while, and we know she would have played just about everything else. Develop your brain into develop your brain. Look at the top 2.
Yep, I changed my mind. I don't want a Maleficent every turn. I want to develop your brain every turn. Right off the top. Let's see more.
Yeah, yeah. So it's always fun to play sleight of hand. Go digging. Here is Hades, Infernal Schemer, going to knock down the Ursula, and now Grandma Tala can start questing. Seems to be what Krista wants to do. We're up to 9. And now we're going to go back Campo's way with 2 threats on board. One scary, one not so much.
And this density of answers is really one of the hallmarks of Ruby Sapphire. Once Matthew starts drawing cards like Mickey Mouse, Brave Little Tailor, and things like that, every time Krista gets to answer one of those with a Hades or a Maleficent, she's going to be pulling back into the game. Speaking of Maleficent.
Yeah, that monster dragon chews up Hades, sends him back to the underworld where he belongs, send him home. Now we're going to see if he wants to do anything else. Has a Befuddle, I think, so it could bounce Grandma Tala, but probably just going to hold on to that for the time being.
Yeah, we see all 3 of our Ruby Amethyst players today are packing 1 or 2 copies of Befuddle, and the main reason for that is for the mirror match. You can set up a board state where every single turn you're returning a broom to your hand and then using that broom to shuffle Befuddle back in. But we do see Matthew decides decking is not going to be a concern in this game and inks that Befuddle.
The word you just said made me want to cry. Befuddle my broom to broom the befuddle. That's how you don't deck in the mirror.
Yeah, look, this has happened in Magic before. Just a few years ago, there was a deck with Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, that would just keep putting itself back into the library every game. This happens from time to time with control decks, but in Lorcana, a lot of people are hopeful that I think it's Merlin's Spellbook is going to change things for Ruby Amethyst and push games towards a conclusion.
I certainly hope so. I think Merlin's Spellbook's quite good. It's a 3-cost Amethyst item from the Chapter 2, not out yet, and it's the only item that can generate a lore.
So far.
So, could be the Mirror Breaker. You don't have to win with characters anymore. It's the new Millstone. We're going to play a couple of characters. Here's a Grandma Tala. Here's an Aurora. We're going to go back Campo's way. Don't think it's time for Be Prepared, but perhaps we'll get there in a moment. There's currently 4 lore threatening on the other side. Broom can challenge the Grandma. See how Campo wants to approach it.
And we talked some about Aurora yesterday. Not the most impressive shifted card. So Krista is down to just 2 copies of Dreaming Guardian and no copies of Regal Princess. Just kind of an incidental way to get some extra ward. And that's going to be worth a Be Prepared for Matthew.
Yep, and just extremely knowledgeable about the type of situation that Campo's in, knows that he's way ahead on resources, and wants to make sure he doesn't randomly get skunked by these Grandma Talas and the Aurora by questing too much in the next few turns. Go ahead and sings the Be Prepared with the Maleficent, and then follows up with a BLT. It's about lunchtime. I want me a BLT.
Honestly, it does sound pretty good.
All right, 5-drop Maleficent, the quest for 3 on the other side for Krista O. That's going to meet a Dragonfire. And now we're going to start churning towards the end game. We're going to get a Goofy Daredevil down, and we're going to start questing for 4. And Brave Little Tailor are going to start threatening to end the game very quickly.
Yeah, like I said, we saw this game just those 3 friends on the other side for Matthew, but That's been close to enough.
Monstrous Dragon, the peel for Krista. That takes care of the BLT, and now Matthew gonna go looking for another type of sandwich. That was bad. That sucked. I hated when I said that.
And kind of the problem here for Krista's threats is they are, great value on that monstrous dragon, but everything except for these 2 copies of Brave Little Tailor can be answered by Maui Hero to All, and even here, this Aladdin for Matthew is going to make Krista think twice about questing with Maleficent.
All right, so Goofy Daredevil should be ready. I'm gonna have to talk about Campo, about his mechanics. My man loves to draw a card before ready. We're gonna play Monstrous Dragon, gonna blow up the opponent's Monstrous Dragon, and then we're gonna quest with Aladdin and Goofy up to 13. Krista on the back foot. Gonna need a nice string of cards here to have a shot. Jasmine's not gonna be enough. We're gonna quest 4, 2, 4, 6, up to 19 here. Deploy even more pressure, perhaps. I see a Maui and a Gaston hanging out. Not quite enough. Neither of those quests. We'll see.
And we saw Matthew here, Krista had a couple good top decks, a couple medium ones, but Matthew really just had to survive the initial onslaught on turns, 6, 7, 8. And once he got through those, players were kind of at parity, and with just a couple extra cards, Matthew is able to close out game number 1.
All right, let's take a look at Krista O's player slide and talk about her for a moment. I wrote a profile article for TCG Player just a few days ago, and Krista, she's been working on her master's degree in clinical mental health. You know how long it takes to get a master's degree? How much dedication and pure force of will and heart it takes to get a master's degree in anything?
Yeah, I know, because I don't have that. Very impressed by anyone who can put in that kind of work. And Krista's dedicated.
Favorite Disney movie, Mulan and Robin Hood, and The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan. I'm a pretty big fan of the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap myself, if I'm being real.
Honestly, haven't seen it.
She's lived in Japan and travels there quite often. Her favorite Disney park is Tokyo Disney Sea, and she has a Shiba Inu named Toshi. Krista is one of our invited guests here for the Invitational. She is a Magic player, been playing competitively for quite a while. Is a Eldrazi Tron expert in Modern.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, as these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, take a moment here and shout out some of our sponsors. First and foremost, tcgplayer.com. Thank you so much for being our flagship sponsor. We couldn't have put this event on without you. We really appreciate it. If you are interested in buying singles for any collectible card game, chances are it's probably on tcgplayer.com. Also, make sure to check out the article section of TCG Player Infinite. That's where they're posting all of their articles now for the competitive strategy. Thank you so much to Cards and Castles 2. Cards and Castles 2 is a card battler that has elements of the tactics fighting genre with a nice resource system. You can get it for free on Steam right now, and it's free to play. If you go check out Cards and Castles 2 and use code Apex Gaming, you can get 5 free booster packs. Also, thank you so much to Ultimate Guard. They are the #1 brand for cool swag when it comes to Magic the Gathering supplies, from deck boxes to card sleeves. Check out the Katana sleeves, the Archive deck box, and you'll be a happy camper. Go to your LGS and ask for it. If they don't have it, ask them why. Players here are almost ready for game number 2, just finishing up the last few mulligans and shuffling it up. How's your day going so far, Matt? Tell me about it.
I'm having a lot of fun. We're seeing some cool matchups. I'm seeing some absolute I can't think of the right word for these Amber Steel mirrors that we've seen, with players just slinging, grab your swords back and forth.
Volatile.
Yeah. Explosive and volatile. Those are good words.
Tumultuous.
Sure.
Effervescent.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know about that last one.
I don't even know what it means. I just have heard it before.
Yeah. I would. It doesn't sound right to me. Let's go tumultuous.
Yeah, tumultuous is good. All right, these players here are just about ready to start game number 2. Krista O down a game. Matthew Campo won our last chance qualifier last night. Is 2-0, looking to win his 3rd match and punch his ticket to day number 2. These players are in pod play for day 1, And with 3 wins, they will advance to the second day. At 3 losses, they will be eliminated. So it's a race to 3 wins. Your tiebreakers for day 2 depend on how quickly you achieve those 3 wins. And that'll help for play and draw tomorrow. These players are playing for $5,000 in cash. We do have some consolation prizes. If you don't make day 2, you still get $100 store credit. We want to say thank you to our players for coming out. I know it was quite a trek for a few of them. We actually had someone yesterday in the last chance qualifier, Jeebus, former Storybook Brawl streamer, drove over 12 hours to get here.
Wow.
Yeah. Game's underway. Neither player with a 1-drop. Let's see what Krista wants to do on 2. She had an explosive game number 1 with multiple ramp spells. Let's see if she wants to do the same. Here's her grandma.
Grandma, not one of the better ramp options in Sapphire, but not the best. You know, the most consistently played are Mickey Mouse Detective and One Jump Ahead, but Grandma Tala has been making her way into lists. We also see her in the Amber Sapphire list that 3 of our players brought today.
You know, I might become a Cauldron truther.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's something about these Ruby Amethyst folks. I feel like they understand something that we don't, right?
Sure.
They feel the game, you know? And something like Ursula's Cauldron, it doesn't draw a card. It just sits there and manipulates the top of the deck. But if your deck is just flush with resources constantly, doesn't a little card selection actually sound kind of good?
Yeah, you know, we've seen it in play a few times now over the last couple tournaments. And when it comes down early, things just go pretty well for that Ruby Amethyst.
Weird.
Weird.
Yeah, and they usually tend to win.
Yeah. You do, I imagine, have to be a little more careful the way you deploy your resources when you're on a Cauldron plan as opposed to a mirror one. But it is a lot smoother, you know. You don't get punished for dedicating your ink to things other than card drawing, like you would with a mirror. And on Krista's turn, we saw 2 more ramp spells in One Jump and Mickey, and then just 3 ink for our friends on the other side for Matthew Campo.
Yeah, it looks like Matthew is not really doing a whole lot, just manipulating card drawing. Chris O, similarly, just kind of ramping things up. What we're trying to do here is to play bigger and badder things if you're Krista O. But the problem is that most of those bigger and badder things, if they come down ahead of schedule, often are trading for things that are weak. You know, the Hades Infernal Schemer eating up the 3-drop Rafiki from last game, Monstrous Dragon knocking off, you know, Gastons and Mauis or whatever. It's just, you know, but I think that ramping into those big effects is excellent against the more aggressive decks. But you're seeing Campo, while there's a lot of ramp going on the other side, he's not afraid.
Yeah.
Not like in trouble.
Yeah, and at the beginning of game 1, I kind of made a lot of noise about Matthew being down on those mirrors, but we saw just 3 copies of Friends on the other side, and Campo was kind of flush with cards for the rest of the game.
Right.
So he's pretty happy to play that in this matchup.
Yeah, Mirror is really great in long games and pretty weak against Beast Hard-Headed and the aggressive decks. But it's become like a core piece of the Ruby Amethyst deck, so it's a great talking point for Matthew Campo's build, and maybe it's one of the reasons why he's been having success is because he's not playing them. Maybe.
Yeah. Though he might be in for some trouble if he does run into our other 2 Ruby Amethyst players today.
That's true. Maybe you dodge. Here's a Rafiki, comes down. That's going to bang the drum on the Mickey Mouse Detective, puts it into the bin. Only 1 damage on the Rafiki. The Grandma Tala can run headfirst into the Rafiki and then go to the Inkwell if that is what Krista wants to do. Or she can just quest for 1. Start pushing towards that seemingly unattainable 20.
Yeah. Don't see many players reach that point against Ruby Amethyst. Exception being Kurt Spies, our last chance qualifier.
You know, he wrote Kurt Spice on his deck list, so that's on him.
Yeah, apparently his username on Melee is Spice, but his last name itself is pronounced Spies. We're just going to go with either at this point.
Yeah. Oh, Curdy Spee.
Kurt S.
He said when he was a kid, people used to call him Curdy Spice because of the Spice Girls.
Mm.
I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, he's Curdy Spice from now on. Sorry, buddy. All right, so we have Heroic Outlaw from Krista O and a quest up to 3, and now we're going to go back Campo's way. Let's see how he wants to progress. Might need something like Dragonfire to deal with the Aladdin, still pretty far away from being able to bust it up with a Monstrous Dragon or Be Prepared. And Rafiki can't really quest, or else that Aladdin's going to get busy.
Yeah, luckily Ruby Amethyst not super concerned about questing in the early game.
Either get busy stealing or get busy dying.
Taking a look at Matthew's hand, some of the beefier cards in Maleficent and an Ursula. Friends on the other side, number 2.
Yeah, a common theme for Campo in that Ruby Amethyst strategy, just paying 3 for the friends on the other side, not wanting to expose the Rafiki to a challenge from the Heroic Outlaw. And thinks it's better to ink the Sorceress instead of holding it to play it later. I agree. And we're going to go back Krista's way. Now, we are in decent shape if you're Krista. Still 2 turns away from a Be Prepared. And now we can start getting 3 lore turn. And any character we play this turn will likely be able to quest next turn before that Be Prepared comes down. And it's just another Grammatala.
And this is a good spot for that third character. You know, you don't really want to send a high value character into the muck. It'll get to quest once, but then more than likely get eaten up by a Be Prepared. So Grammatala just being able to get that little bit of extra lore in the meantime is right where Krista wants to be in the face of Be Prepared. But instead, Matthew wants to answer this Aladdin before it gets to quest another time. So Maui's just going to trade off just like last game.
All right. So that plus the Rafiki eats the Tala, but the Tala goes to the Inkwell. And now firmly in position to carve out a foothold in this game. No pressure from Krista, really.
Yep. Krista kind of looking for those big characters in Brave Little Tailor, Maleficent. Really, Robin Hood is the best in a spot like this, but she actually has no follow-up. So Campo, not under a lot of pressure. Gets
Well,
to spend
perhaps the
more
follow-up
ink.
with something like Monstrous Dragon, which you just want to save, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know. It's like that's one of the problems with playing against Ruby Amethyst when you're using similar cards as them. They're pairing the powerful cards of Ruby with card draw, and Krista's pairing the powerful cards of Ruby with ramp. And so she's able to play stuff more quickly against the aggressive decks, but playing things more quickly against the control deck doesn't matter.
yeah. One of the uh, one of the few colors with real access to hard removal. So even once Krista gets down those 7 and 8 ink characters ahead of schedule, Matthew can actually answer them more efficiently than the cost to play. And Ursula is a great card here as Matthew starts to take back some of the initiative. Gonna draw a card and induce some removal out of Krista.
Yeah, Ursula here, quite nice. You know, it's very rarely wrong to cast Ursula. The only time I think is maybe when your opponent has no lore,
Yeah,
because it requires a lore to draw the card.
that's
I believe.
true.
'Cause it's actually super gross in multiplayer because it
I've
steals the
heard.
lore from every opponent and draws a card for everyone. All right, here's a develop your brain. Gonna put one on the bottom, one to hand.
And sitting in Krista's seat now, this Ursula's Cauldron has been going since turn 2. So if you're ever making a play and thinking, well, this is good if my opponent doesn't have X, you can't really bank on that with all these Cauldron activations. Matthew's hand is just getting stronger and stronger, even if it's not getting much bigger.
Yep, and he's gonna have essentially a be prepared in the bank at all times. He's gonna have a Dragonfire in the bank at all times. He's
Yeah.
gonna have a threat in the bank at all times, and you know, doesn't really need to play more than one thing per turn because those things are essentially the same thing that Krista is playing, but we have card draw to back it up, whereas Krista doesn't. So I think that's the big breaking point and
Yeah.
why the Ruby Sapphire versus Ruby Amethyst matchup I think favors the one with Amethyst because of all that card draw. All right, we'll count them up. We got the Monstrous Dragon at the ready. Here it comes. Chew him up, Pac-Man style. Campo cannot wait to draw for turn. Just cannot wait to ready everything and before draw.
Yeah, I can't believe he's rushing that much when he knows what card it is.
Maybe just really wants to ready or activate the Ursula's Cauldron again, but that's one of the problems of
That's
not
true.
reading before, right? Because it creates these weird situations with things that have free activated abilities, you know. All
Yeah.
right, our Maleficent comes down, trades for Maleficent. Now we're gonna go back Krista's way. We have one jump ahead.
So the turns so far for Matthew have been Ursula into Monstrous Dragon. Let's see if he has the best card once again on this following turn. My gut's telling me yes. Card in the hand right away.
All right, Mr. Director Man, would you mind going and reminding Mr. Campo to please ready his cards before drawing? Is that something?
All right. I see. Believe it or not, another Monstrous Dragon.
Believe it or not, I believe it.
Yeah. All right. Just talking to our players here. Matthew. Yeah, I guess I'll play this Monstrous Dragon. It's only the best card every turn.
Once you have 9 ink, there's not a whole lot of things that cost 9
Yeah.
ink. In fact, I think there are one card that costs 9 ink. So once you hit 9, it's usually the best thing that you can play.
It's
All right,
true.
going back Christo's way. Maleficent eats the Hades, and now we need to continually answer every turn, and it's difficult because that's a good one though. Robin Hood Archer is going to draw a card. Tapped a little too many, but that's okay. 4 ink left. Finds Dragonfire. If she wants to ink something, she can Dragonfire away the Maleficent Monstrous Dragon.
And one of the cards Krista played last turn was one jump ahead, and that's kind of what you're seeing happen here is, especially thanks to the Cauldron, Matthew is really never going to draw a brick, but Krista does have those bricks in her deck, like one jump ahead, Grammatala, that are far less effective than the best cards Matthew has access to.
I don't know what to say, man. Cauldron looking good this game.
Yeah, it's true. Look, we know the longer it's in play, the better it's going to be, and it did come down on turn two.
Yeah.
But I think you definitely have to choose one, right? It's probably hard to be off the magic mirrors and off the cauldrons, because that's really the role Cauldron is playing. Mirror players make up for it in sheer quantity, but Campo's kind of going for a quality route. And maybe debating, do I really need to play the fourth dragon? No, Ursula, power hungry.
All right. Well, we're gonna drain you for one, draw a card, and probably quest with the Monstrous Dragon. That's bigger than the Robin Hood and very little threat of buffs for a trade.
Yeah, vulnerability is not super important when you're playing against Ruby Sapphire, though Krista does have access to Maui Hero to all, I suppose.
Right, but it's still 1-for-1 trading, and the Maui's going to trade for the dragon at any point in the game,
Yes.
and you're going to get your 2 lore and trade. Yeah. All right. We have an Aurora. The 5-drop here is going to give ward to our other characters. Quest for 2. Large body as well.
Yeah, but now that Matthew has gotten some time to develop a board position, the ward from Aurora, it's not going to be super relevant. Any removal spell can be pointed at the Aurora. Any challenges can just hit the Robin Hood instead.
Okay.
And Krista's still not past the halfway point in terms of lore.
All right. Well, back Campo's way. And now, Ursula, not great at challenging though, has very little strength, high willpower, so it's usually your finisher. You start questing with it, your opponent has a tough time getting off the table, and it replaces itself with that card draw and steals the lore, so it kind of is making it harder for your opponent to win.
Yeah.
A lot to love about Ursula, but challenging is not it.
Now, there is at least a Be Prepared, alongside a bunch of other great cards, of course, in Campo's hand. I wonder if he's considering just taking the 2-for-1 on this Be Prepared. Once your opponent starts running out of cards on Ruby Sapphire, you kind of start running out of good situations for Be Prepared. So I wouldn't be surprised to see here, but he has plenty of other options as well.
All right, we're gonna sing the "Be Prepared" with the Ursula, a common theme from Ruby Amethyst, a common play, and one that often leaves them in a very good position because they
Yeah.
follow it up with a giant threat, and it looks like we're gonna get the biggest threat in the deck on the table. That's a Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor. Let's get that one back on the screen again because BLT is one of the more iconic cards in the game. It was one of the very first cards ever previewed, I believe, San Diego Comic-Con last year,
Yeah.
and it is an 8-cost Ruby card. Quest for 4 as evasive.
That's the most.
It is the most. There it is. Got a borked. Got a borked image.
Krista, of course, plenty of answers in the Ruby Sapphire deck, so pretty unlikely a Mickey Mouse is going to stick around for long. And her follow-up is another Mickey, but a smaller one in the Detective.
All right, well, no threats here from Campo's side of things, though. The Hades does take care of the Mickey Mouse, and we're going to go back Campo's way and see if he can continue to deal with what's in play and deploy threats of his own. Firmly in control. Krista with only 1 card in hand. Grip full for Matthew.
Yeah, we are, there's 2 characters, 3 lore in play. Wouldn't be surprised to see another Be Prepared. Krista really only has so many more multi-character turns left this game. Instead, an Elsa, and Elsa can be a great 1-2 punch with Be Prepared, unless Matthew just decides it's time to start taking over the board himself.
All right. Character's frozen. Can't quest, can't sing. No, no, no. No, 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 no. Frozen.
There we go.
All right. Krista plays a Dragonfire. Elsa down. No questing for you. No challenging for you. We're going to go back Campo's way. Look, he started to draw before Redding, and we had our director talk to him, and he stopped himself.
Straightened him right
This
out.
is called, what's it called when you get better at something?
Improvement?
That's improvement, baby.
That's improvement, baby. Personal growth.
There we go.
All right, plenty of options here. Another Elsa. More where that came from. Campo is playing, let's see here, 4 copies of Elsa. 4 Ursula, 4 Brave Little Tailor, 2 Pongo, 2 Goofy, 4 Maleficent, 3 Aladdin. That is plenty of threats.
Yeah, if you're curious about the deck list that these players in our Invitational are playing, we have a command @ deck or deck list in the chat. And I'll give you a link to our Twitter page where we posted all 16 lists earlier today. Gonna play Friends on the Other Side. Gonna sing Friends on the Other Side. Elsa freezes your 2 things. We're gonna ink an Archimedes. Inkimedes.
And this is just more than enough resources for Matthew to get through. There was another Elsa, so yet again we don't get to ready. But yet again we have an answer for the Elsa.
Yeah, but what this does is that every time that Krista does this, this walks her further and further into the next Be Prepared.
Right.
And that's exactly what Campo is trying to do. So, we're going to ready our ink. Thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you so much. We love you. Now, I don't want to rag on Matthew about it because I know that at the very beginning of your turn in some other games, the first action is draw a card. Where we
Okay.
come from, our background is Magic the Gathering, and that game you untap everything,
Mhm.
then your draw step, then you can play stuff, and you know it's just it looks weird sometimes, and so I just want to try to have more just like you know uniformity.
Standards, yeah.
All right, Bob Maleficent, you're not immune to Be Prepared. You also got trampled by the antelope. Get out of here. Rip Mufasa.
Rip
A real one.
Mufasa.
Here's an Ursula. We're going to drain and draw.
And Matthew at this point, with the help of those friends on the other side, more ink than Krista. Sorry, the help of the friends, but also the help of Krista's Hades and Let It Goes.
Right. It's one of the downsides of the interaction in Sapphire. It's
Yeah.
efficient, right? But it turns those cards into ink instead of putting them into the banish zone, which means that against a deck like Ruby Amethyst, you're just giving them more fuel for the fire.
Mm-hmm.
All right, be prepared for Krista does clear the Ursula. She is running on empty. We have Campo here looking to deploy a threat on an empty board, something like a BLT, Brave Little Tailor, seems nice. And now Campo does have to be aware of be prepared from the other side of things too, so can rarely deploy more than like one valuable threat at once, often deploying a mid threat and a valuable threat.
Right. And that's why we saw, I think, Krista just 1 for 1 with that be prepared is she knows, Matthew knows what's up. She's pretty unlikely to get anything more out of it. So would rather get it in before the damage is done.
All right, Robin Hood gonna draw a card since we have fewer cards in hand than our opponent. And here's a Grammatala. We're gonna go back Campo's way. We got 2 evasive threats. No! He reverted! Oh no! He stopped himself after he did it, and you can tell, he's beat himself up
Yeah.
over it. I really don't want him to be self-conscious about it. It's okay, Matthew. He gave me a glance through the mirror. It's okay. It's okay. Trust me, I'm not ragging on you. I love you, buddy. Come on. All right. Couple evasive characters here for Campo, but Robin Hood can challenge them, and there's a Dragonfire to take it down. And now it's a Pongo and a Daredevil Goofy against a Grandma Tala. Not really a fair fight. I feel like Grandma gonna get whooped.
Yeah, she's just kind of looking up at this. Is that a jumping dog?
Look, that's a little rascal. I actually don't really know what Pongo's from personally, so 101 Dalmatians. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Oh, he's one of the Dalmatians.
That's true.
Great. I don't know. To me, he's a dog. I don't know. What do you want? It's a dog.
It's only the most iconic dog breed.
Is it? I'm pretty sure.
The one with all the spots. That's a Dalmatian.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah,
All right.
you got to take the L on this one, Todd.
Yeah. All right. Here's a let it go on the Goofy. Puts it into the inkwell. Grandma gonna go a question up to 6, but while the lore totals are 7 to 6, the game is not as close as the lore totals will make it out to be. That's something that happens quite a bit in Magic the Gathering when we play that. The life totals are not indicative of exactly where the game is at in terms of who's ahead. In this situation, Campo pretty firmly ahead on resources.
Yeah, that's been the case in most of the matches we've watched so far today, with the exception of Kyle Huck and his Emerald Amethyst deck. That's one where you're really looking to get ahead on lore early and then close out the game quickly. But, Amber Steel, Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Sapphire, these decks are more about the board position than the lore totals.
All right, here's a Mickey Mouse BLT. Brave Little Tailor going to come down and threaten a bunch of lore. And now Krista going to look for a Be Prepared to deal with this board. Has had a card sitting in hand for a while. Not sure what it is. It's been face down over there off to the left.
It would make sense to be an extra Be Prepared.
Maui.
It's a Maui with only one target.
Yeah. And we're going to quest. Still has that one card in hand. Now it's off to the side here. She's going to look at it again. I wish she'd put a dice or something on it, but we know. We know it's not ink.
She's been careful enough from what I've seen. All of her ink is usually touching each other, and then the card in hand is separated. But we did see Brennan and a few other players, like you said, putting a die on top.
All right. Sorcerer's going to draw a card. We're going to quest pretty safely for 6, putting us up to 16. And now Krista O needs a way to deal with the BLT, Brave Little Tailor, or we're going to be Dunzo Washington. 2 Monstrous Dragons still in hand for Campo. Refusing to play either of them. Doesn't really need to. Here's a Develop Your Brain. That can potentially find the answer. With Campo, the lore totals are a little off here. We have +6. We are at 16 from the Brave Little Tailor and the Pongo. There we go. And now, doesn't find it. Krista extends a hand. Matthew Campo, your first player into day number 2 with 3-0 in the first pod. This is going to mean that he is guaranteed cash prize money and a shot at the championship. And we'll see him tomorrow, but his day is done. He can go relax. He can go to the hot tub.
Absolutely. He is qualified. And Krista, not out of it yet. One more win in either of the next 2 rounds will also push Krista into day 2.